Welcome to an audiobook entitled Parish Management and Operations, The Buck Stops Here, narrated by Catholic author Michael Brinda. We hope you enjoy the segment and find it useful in your ministerial work.
Chapter 9. Critical Distinctions Between Administration and Leadership. We begin with St. Paul, 1 Corinthians, chapter 12, verses 4 through 11. There are different kinds of spiritual gifts, but the same Spirit. There are different forms of service, but the same Lord. There are different workings, but the same God who produces all of them in everyone. To each individual, the manifestation of the Spirit, it is given for some benefit. To one is given through the Spirit the expression of wisdom, to another the expression of knowledge according to the same Spirit, to another faith by the same Spirit, to another gifts of healing by the one Spirit, to another mighty deeds, to another prophecy, to another discernment of spirits, to another varieties of tongues, to another interpretation of tongues. But one and the same Spirit produces all of these, distributing them individually to each person as he wishes. Any discussion on management and operations in the realm or in any realm must include an explanation on the nature of leadership and the distinctions between administration and leadership. Technically, when we think of management and operations, we think namely of the science of operating, but the reality is that operating science without the animating art behind it simply devolves into a series of mechanical processes without an artistic mind serving as the overall organizing principle. Mechanical processes without an artistic mind behind them are bleak, robotic, static, and soulless acts, ultimately unsuited to the fluidity of human-to-human interactions. To be effective in PMO, we must understand what effectiveness means in terms of the art of administration or leadership, or the lack thereof, that animates both. For instance, the parish can increase in its wealth or decrease in its wealth depending upon the skill of the parish business manager. But what to do with the wealth that is generated to better support the parish mission, that requires a mind that understands the art of PMO and not just the mechanical science of fundraising. This next point may read counterintuitive to what you think is the central objective, or at least a primary objective of this book, and that is, no book or course will ever create a leader. We are not, per se, teaching here how to be a leader. Why? Because that is not possible. Leadership is a God-given gift. Repeat, leadership is a God-given gift. The goal here is not to make leaders out of those who do not have the gift of leadership, because you can't. God chooses who will receive the gift of leadership, not any teacher or book author. However, a quick internet search will confirm how confused the world is on the above distinctions, with an equal number of articles claiming that leaders are born, not made, and leaders are made, not born. To be clear, you can teach a leader how to be a better leader, but you cannot teach someone who has not received the gift of leadership how to be a leader. To quote St. Paul again, 1 Corinthians chapter 12, some people God has designated in the church to be first apostles, second prophets, third teachers, then mighty deeds, then gifts of healing, assistance, administration, and varieties of tongues. So what can be taught to anyone? Administration can be taught to anyone designated to serve as an administrator, but leadership is a God-given gift. You will either have this gift, you were either given this gift, or you weren't. The notion that learning some number of steps, how to be a leader in 12 steps, or any number of steps, will make a leader out of someone who fundamentally does not have the God-given gift of leadership is false. People come to believe that reading such articles and or books will backfill what they are missing to become effective leaders. Nothing a person reads, views, hears will backfill for the lack of God's gift of leadership, and unless and until God gives someone the gift, he or she will not gain it. But such people can become very effective administrators. Perhaps you can now detect the spiritual gift of leadership is closely related to the gift of administration, but administrative skill is not the same as the gift of leadership. More on this point follows. If you already have the gift of leadership, and perhaps you don't even know it but may realize it as it is revealed, wonderful. If you don't, please relax now, because turning you into a leader without the gift is not possible, and therefore is not our objective here. In this book we are here to, number 1, reveal, not create, simply reveal the gift of leadership that God may have given to you according to what gifts God has given to you. And number 2, although no course and or book or video, etc., can create a leader out of whole cloth, a course and or book can create a better leader if someone is so gifted. And 3, we can create an administrator from whole cloth if someone has been designated to an administrative position. And this is what we are specifically here to do through this book. Reveal the gift of leadership in those who have the gift, and in anyone, create a supremely competent administrator. Derived from the above, it then becomes a fair question to ask, what is the difference between an administrator and a leader? Or more precisely for our purposes, what is the difference between a parish administrator and a parish leader? Administrators are responsible for running an organization. In plain English, they must at a minimum keep the wheels on the figurative bus going round and round in the same direction every day. Administrators keep the operations they inherit running smoothly if they are already running smoothly, and they must also detect and repair what is genuinely broken or in need of improvement in order to deliver the superior service God expects, not man expects, God expects, from their PMO. This will also involve the ability to teach not just the how, but also the why to those that report to you. We must also note that leader does not have a relatively simple or one-size-fits-all definition as stated above for the administrator. To be a leader is to include all of the above that define an administrator in basic terms, but also includes integration of the art of personnel management, multiple disciplines, sciences, and skills related to, not listed in order of blending percentages or priority, the following: organizational culture creation, delegation, empathy, founding, financial matters, creativity, humility, listening, motivation, inspiration, consistency, flexibility, objectivity, risk assessment, risk-taking, fearlessness, self-sacrifice, subjugation of ego, team building, extreme focus, failure management, forecasting, intuition, passion, sense of humor, conviction, diverse skills acumen, results-driven, superior persuasive abilities, self-aware, and long-term strategic vision. Are you starting to see why there are so few authentic leaders? Here is the distinction between the administrator and leader succinctly stated. An administrator does not have to possess all of the aforementioned skills to be an excellent administrator. A few key ones will suffice. But a person without a high degree of mastery of all these skills can never be an excellent leader, or really a leader at all. Although we all know of people who masquerade as leaders and hold positions where a leader is optimally required, at least temporarily, over an administrator. In regard to claiming to be something that you are not, perhaps Abraham Lincoln described this disorder best. Lincoln said, "If you call the tail of a dog a leg, how many legs does a dog have? 4. Saying that a tail is a leg doesn't make it a leg." Thus, if you call yourself a leader or have a title that infers leader, this does not make you a leader any more than mislabeling the tail of a dog affords the dog 5 legs. Leaders have an intuitive sense to the aforementioned daunting list of characteristics of leadership. This is the God-gifted dimension of leadership in action that man must acknowledge, and often fails to acknowledge in a futile attempt to become a man-made leader, not God-created leader, and lead. The leader's mind can capably process the overall situation, however complex, in a holistic manner that an administrator's mind and inventory of talents, try as they might, cannot possibly replicate. Throughout history and to this day in business, government, military, and religious circles, so much misery is inflicted upon the world when people without true leadership skills somehow end up holding an office that intrinsically requires leadership skills. Clearly note, we are not labeling or implying in any way smarter or better, but simply pointing out the characteristics that define the key and core distinctions between a leader and an administrator. Why is this point so important to understand? Answer for yourself. Pause and reflect here. How many people do you know who can articulate the difference between an administrator and a leader, and in order to do their current job most effectively, should absolutely know these distinctions, but do not know them and cannot explain them? When you cannot identify the differences between an administrator and a leader, what are the usual consequences? You will inevitably place an administrator, who are far more in abundance, in a position that demands a leader with predictably disastrous results. What have been the consequences of placing an administrator in a position that demands a leader? Look at it this way. Notice how the only person who suffers when a leader is incorrectly placed in an administrator's chair is the leader, because the only problem is that the leader owns a skill set that is being underutilized. But what about the administrator who is incorrectly placed in the leader's chair? Oh my, how everybody can suffer when the task at hand requires the skill set of leadership as mentioned above, and it is not provided. Note this lesson well for the good of the church. It is not for me to tell you at this time if you are an administrator or a leader, but you better figure it out if you don't know, because the last thing you want to do is be an administrator assigned to a role that requires a leader, or be a leader stuck in a position that is wasting your gift of leadership. The gift of leadership is part art, part science. The science of leadership can be taught, the art of leadership cannot, and therein lies the God-given origination of the gift. How so? Among other things, a leader needs to be ready for what is going to happen, and not simply dither or dwell on or plan to remedy what has already happened. Shouting, "Iceberg ahead!" usually doesn't turn out so well for the ship or the captain. As such, a good leader sees tomorrow. A better leader sees the day after tomorrow. and the greatest leaders see the day after tomorrow. This is an art, not a science. Do you understand? This is strategic vision, a paramount ingredient to leadership, but an ingredient, all things being equal, that an administrator does not need to have to excel at day-to-day PMO administration. Does there need to be a leader somewhere on the parish org chart? Yes, but it does not have to be the PMO administrator. This is one reason God did not create an overabundance of authentic gifted leaders, as that would give us a tribe of chiefs that clearly could not function. We don't need a plethora of leaders to daily administrate. We just need the leaders God gifted as such to be placed in the correct organizational positions. And it is often the ego of others, which is to say the sin of pride, that blocks what should be happening in personnel promotions, transfers, and advancements from actually happening. As such, as stated, it is not our goal here to create leaders out of those who do not possess the gift of leadership. It is our goal here to teach the principles of effective administration and reveal, not teach, the gift of leadership in those who may have been gifted it by God. In short, you are either capable of becoming an administrator by learning this craft, or you already have the God-gifted gift of leadership, but perhaps need more education on the science side of administration or leadership. Fine. You will find both the science and the art of PMO presented here. However, notice that by the pure definition, a leader has the skill set to perform the duties of an administrator, but an administrator does not have the skill set to perform the duties of a leader, nor can an administrator acquire the skill set of a leader without the gift of leadership coming from God. This point is one of the most misunderstood points in any realm, be it business, government, military, or religious operations. Far too many strive for positions that demand leadership skills and gain them, but they only possess the skills of an administrator, and sometimes not even those skills, to the severe detriment of their organization. The church requires both administrators and leaders, and there is positively no inference here, expressed or implied, that the nature of one skill set is better or more important to building the kingdom of God than the other. However, it is vital to you that you understand your own self, to understand what you are, and it is paramount that we do not place administrators in positions that require leaders. Simply listen, re-listen to the characteristics mentioned above that define a leader, and then imagine the problems within any organization that gets this wrong and installs an administrator where there should be a leader. That this mistake is an everyday and common occurrence speaks to the depth and lack of understanding people have in regards to the nature of leadership, and the distinction between leadership and administration. Many an administrator will clamor for a leadership position, but should they be given such a position? No. I would be surprised if you have not already been on the wrong end of these truths about the distinction between leaders, leadership, administration, and administrators at this point in your life. Note such positional and talent mismatches are not easily forgotten, especially by those on the receiving end of the mismatch. Apply the above teaching wherever you are now or are in the future, given the authority to do so. I covered this point to this detail because to get these points wrong is to cause much trouble for many people and waste an enormous amount of time and energy. Note these lessons well for the good of the church.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.